Hello and welcome, my goblins, crocheting a nice little quilt for their baby goblins. It's SJB here. Today, it's all about the Boomerang! So this is going to be a weird video, and I want you guys to let me know how I'm doing. Please press the like button, please subscribe if I'm doing a good job, and let me know in the comments if you think I'm doing a terrible, terrible job. Today we're talking about every single upgrade of the Boomerang. I've seen a lot of players say that they, look at this and they're like, oh my god, there's 15 different, upgrades we can get. They're all different cross paths and stuff. So by the end of this video, I want to rank every single one of these guys in my own personal use. Now, of course, that's a little more complicated than it might seem right from the get-go because they're all different and unique in weird ways. So, of course, different scenarios exist for different things, but generally speaking, in a normal BTD6 game, which would be the most usable? Now, we're also going to be basing that off of how much money we're spending. So, of course, the MOAB Dom, the Permacharge, and the Glaive Lord are going to be better than a long range. But is the $110 price tag of this long range worth it compared to the $54,000 of the MOAB Dom? So anyways, let's get started in here. So to understand if something is good, you should understand what does it do. So the base Boomerang here is going to pop 4 balloons with a single shot here. You can see it by popping 4 out of the 5 balloons. If we get the improved rings, we can now pop 8 balloons. So if we send out 9, you can see he's going to pop all 8 of them. If we get the Glaives here, and unfortunately we have to switch the spacing to 0, but we can send out 14 balloons, and you can see that we're going to take 2 hits to pop these things, which means that we can pop 13 balloons with a single shot here, which is pretty impressive. If we go up to a Glaive Ricochet, and we go up to 61 balloons, we can now officially hit 60 balloons with a single shot here, and go kablamo, get down to 1 balloon, and we can take them all down in 1 hit. And then if we go even bigger than that, we can go to 111 balloons for our 4th tier more Glaives, and we get 110 pops in a single shot here. Keep in mind, one other thing that changes with the more Glaives here is it's going to give extra damage to ceramic balloons, and then also it's going to give you a bigger range between balloons spacing here. So if you have a yellow balloon here and there, they're going to be able to bounce better, basically. 3rd tier now doesn't bounce quite as well, so just keep that in mind while you're playing with this. And then we go up to the 5th tier, and this bad boy is the Glaive Lord, and he gets a lot of bonuses. So we can, first of all, just send out a ridiculous round here for this guy to just manage while we talk about him. So the Glaive Lord has 30 range here for his Glaive, so you can really see, it's almost exactly where the thing hits. But it's a little bit further, maybe. And you can also increase the range by getting things like, villages and primary mentorings and trainings and stuff. That'll increase the range if it doesn't increase the look of it. It does +2 damage every 0.08 seconds. So, that's 14 times a second or whatever that maths out to. The main Glaive deals +7 damage compared to what it did before, +8 to ceramics. It does damage over times to MOABs, which you can see if you send out a big balloon like a bat or something like that. You can see that, oh my god, we don't need 111 of them. You can see it does damage over time to big balloons in particular, but any MOAB class balloon, you can see it has a little white swirly thing on top of it, because we're doing damage here without having to actually be next to it or anything. It lasts a really long time too, for 15 seconds, and it does 100 every second. And then of course the Glaives can now bounce anywhere. So this is kind of one of the most ridiculous things about it. So if I send out one of these random balloons here, you can see it's going to randomly just go all over the place. If I send out another one though, the Glaives should be able to bounce from anywhere on the screen to anywhere on the screen. So if we're in range at all, we can just go boop, boop, and it's going to bounce everywhere. So if you have a bunch of random balloons all over the place, I mean, it can get pretty freaking wild here with all this bouncing action going on. But either which way, those are all important things to know about the Glaive Lord here. And we're going to jump now to the middle path. So the middle path, to understand this bad boy, we first have to understand that faster throwing is going to give us a 33% faster throwing. It's kind of hard to tell exactly what's going on here with percent throwing compared to pops and everything like that, but that's a pretty decent increase for the price. Again, faster rings is going to be $270, and it's going to make it 33% faster again. And then, if we go to a Bionic Boomerang, it's going to attack 5 times faster than the base Boomerang, which I know is really, really weird, but the amount of speed increase that we get here is actually not as drastic as you might assume. It's not 5 times faster than the 2nd tier, it's 5 times faster than the base Boomerang. So, technically, 5 Boomerangs should do the exact same amount of popping power as a Bionic Boomerang, as ridiculous as that is. And then, once we get to a 4th tier here, we have to keep in mind a couple things. So, Monkey Knowledge, okay? Technically, I have Monkey Knowledge active right now, and you're going to notice one weird thing about the Monkey Knowledge is that the Boomerangs are going to hook around twice before they disappear. That is a Monkey Knowledge aspect. One other thing you're going to notice is that for camo balloons, we cannot see them. unless we use the turbocharge ability, in which case we can, which is a monkey knowledge thing. So don't forget about that, specifically for playing against DDTs or something like that on Unpoppable. This might actually be reasonably helpful if you, for some reason, cannot get cam detection any other way. And then lastly, we've got the ridiculous 5th tier here, the Permacharge, which is kind of insane. It does, again, a lot of things. So let's send it a weird round here, like, I don't know, how about 84? 84, and we'll talk about this guy. So it permanently gains what was the turbocharge from before, which was 7 times attack speed when you use that ability. It deals 4 damage automatically. The ability deals plus 8 damage, but does not actually increase the speed, which is something I actually had no idea about. I thought it was increasing the speed the entire time, because it looks like it should be, but it's just increasing the damage instead. Very odd to me, but okay. Fair enough. And then with Red Hot Rings, it ends up being plus 4 damage, and with the ability, it's plus 2 damage on top of it. So Red Hot Rings is a very good cross-path with Permacharge, though not a necessity here, which we'll show off later on. So that's the middle path, guys. Now, let's talk about the bottom path. So first of all, longer range. Okay, it's a 33% increase of range. Okay, coolio. It does plus 1 damage if you get a Red Hot Rings, and of course it gives you the lead popping power and everything. And then it cross paths with the bigger guys very, very well. A lot of the Glaive Lord and Permacharge combos are going to be Red Hot Rings more than the other way around, just because it is better and gives weird bonuses that it probably shouldn't, to be completely honest. Once we get to Kylie Boomerang, sometimes you want to plan ahead with your boomerangs instead of doing weird curves like we were doing before with random blooms coming in here where we kind of have to like specifically put it in a certain way. Don't have to do that anymore if we're going for a Kylie Boomerang. Instead, you want to probably put them down a straight line here, if at all possible, and that is nice to get nice straight boomerangs just kind of jumping in and up and down here. One of the cool things about this guy is that he can hit multiple balloons with the same boomerang. So if it just kind of slowly goes over the balloons here, you can see that we can kind of hover and just do multiple damage to the same balloon. It's kind of goofy, but it actually works. In addition, it does have 18 total pierce with just the 3rd tier, which is a pretty reasonable amount of pierce, to be honest, for just a lowly 3rd tier boomerang, especially for the attack speed. Once we get to the 4th tier, though, we're going to get the MOAB Press. So, of course, this is going to send back MOABs, quite obviously. MOABs? MOABs? It's going to send back MOABs with this thingamajig, and it also does a reasonable amount of damage to it as well. It does 200 pierce for some reason with the different cross paths here, which is kind of insane. And then once we get to the MOAB Dom, oh, baby, things get even more interesting. So, first of all, the MOAB Dom boomerangs deal plus 10 damage. You're going to see, like, a rainbow or a zebra, it's done. You know, it's kind of wild to see that happen, but it's the truth of it. Everything is attacking twice as fast here without any of the cross paths in addition. So you're going to notice how fast this guy can attack. I can't even really show how amazing it is because he's popping everything so quickly. But against regular balloons here without any MOABs coming in, he's going to shoot quite quickly here. Twice as fast, and of course, you get the faster rings and everything, going to attack way faster. Look at that attack speed, bro. That's not bad at all. Knockback deals increased damage if you end up getting the ability going here. You can see that we're actually doing more damage to the MOAB class blooms, and then it adds an explosion on top of it. So, clearly, this guy's a pretty big winner. The nice thing about the boomerangs is they're really different from each other. If you look at their abilities here, we've got one that's really good against balloons, we've got one that's really good against kind of a combo of everything, and has an activated ability when you really have some trouble, and then one that's really good against MOAB class balloons, but also can deal a little bit of damage against the balloons. So, lower tier stuff, higher tier stuff, kind of somewhere in the middle. That is what boomerangs do. Now, the last thing we have to do is we have to talk about them for their price, and whether or not the cross paths actually make sense and are reasonable to get. So, we're going to start off with the top path here. Improved rings definitely makes sense. For the base cost of a boomerang being 290 to get 215 and double the pierce, definitely makes sense. Same thing with the glaives. It's a very wonderful upgrade to get because you get that extra popping power kind of across the board here for a reasonable price. And when you finally get to the Glaive Ricochet, it got super mega cheap. $650 to jump around all over the place to a bunch of different balloons. Very effective, but you have to watch out for the lack of jumping to different balloons here in weird scenarios where the balloons are not right next to each other. More Glaives is okay, but usually it ends up being outclassed by a lot of other towers by the point you get to it. You don't usually need this much balloon popping power for $3,240, and to be honest, he's not the best tower ever. But once you get to a Glaive Lord, he is one of the best towers ever, if you ask me, because he pops pretty much everything on any early easy map here. I mean, BFBs and below, he's going to absolutely demolish. Even the bigger balloons like a Oh My God or something like that, which is not really his forte to pop, are going to get damaged pretty heavily, if not get popped in their entirety, which again is just kind of wild because he does do damage, extra damage to a single specific balloon. So even though he's not great against the bad, he can still do damage against the bad and pop everything in here. To get lead popping power though, you're definitely going to want to get the red hot rings here instead of the middle path, and that's just something that I almost always end up going for, but it's a personal opinion more than anything. Moving on to the middle path, we've got the faster throwing, which again doesn't really seem like it makes that much sense until you realize how powerful a faster and faster throwing ring actually is. But it ends up being super ridiculously good if you end up merging this combo together. A 2-2 Boomerang in the early game can be one of the most effective early game balloon poppers in the entirety of the game. You're not going to hit your Pierce limit in the early game, and you have the Boomerangs flying around all over the place, so even a hard round like round 15 gets smoked by a 2-2 Boomerang. That's a very fair price for that upgrade. Once you upgrade to a third tier here, of course, you're assuming you're going to get some sort of cross path. You're going to have to pick which one you want to go for. Believe it or not, usually, if you're just going third tier, Glaives is likely to be the better upgrade because it's very accurate, very populicious, and ends up doing pretty much everything you need except for lead popping power, which, yeah, I mean, solid across the board here. Once you get to a turbocharge, though, you might want to start thinking about getting that red hot rings flowing, okay? Now, I know you can't switch there, but if you know you're going to stick with something, that's the way you got to think about it. So turbocharge is going to be extra effective against a MOAB class balloon, surprisingly. So that's cool because it just completely obliterates MOABs. It does extra bonus damage to them, making things ridiculously easy with turbocharge. In fact, it's one of the best late game upgrades you can get for the price. Obviously, you cannot pop everything here, but if you just put a weirdo turbocharge here, leave him on strong, and then actually use an ability here to take down MOABs, it is really, really, really effective for the price. Like I said, really, really, really effective for the price. But of course, not all powerful or anything like that. And then once you finally get to the permacharge here, it is obviously a pretty big boss. Now, switching away from the top path and going red hot rings seems like it makes a lot of sense if you want to pop DDTs, because again, you can get damage detection automatically with your ability here, and that'll give him the lead popping power to do so. It's very strong overall against most things, but you are relying on your ability quite a bit to actually do a good amount of damage. If the ability wears off, you can see you can struggle a little bit as well. And you also might want to swap between left or right side depending on kind of how things are going here. But that ability is the main key to making him good. Getting that huge bonus damage increase is going to make the permacharge awesome, and honestly, I think he's a pretty solid tower. Moving on to the bottom path, we got the long range, which, if I really had to pick it, is probably one of the worst upgrades. I mean, technically, we do get a very, very large range, but the problem with the Boomerang is if you have, like, a really, really long range and you're reaching from far away, you're going to miss a lot. Like, it's not fun when you're missing the balloons quite a bit. You're like, oh no, like, am I going to hit it? Or are we just going to miss all over the place? Like, no, that's not fun. But it can be helpful if you position them in good spots where you put them on something like last, and you kind of reach across the way here and let them actually kind of hook around and do their job and everything. So it's kind of up to you, but again, for the price, it's fair. But red hot rings getting +1 damage early on in the game is ridiculous. Not many other towers get damage. I mean, the sniper obviously gets damage. Higher tier towers are going to get damage, but besides the red hot rings and maybe the hot shots here, damage is kind of scarce. So red hot rings is cool for that fact alone. If you're trying to do big damage to balloons right from the get-go, knocking a zebra down into a pink, skipping the black and white layer is pretty freaking cool. And specifically because we're on Route 81, we didn't even spawn 2 balloons on that. We only spawned 1. So we switched to 79 just for some giggles here. We can skip those layers a little more effectively, I guess. It's just cool. Once we get to the Kylie Boomerang, you definitely have to kind of plan ahead for this, because putting them on last on a not straight line is usually, it's not, I would say it's bad, but much, much, much less effective than putting them in the righteous position here. Putting them at a nice straight line and picking the right cross path as well. But this is what I like to do, put them on last, something like this, and then you just get some ridiculous amounts of popping power, guys. Like, oh, heck yeah, freaking heck yeah, dude. Beautiful. Very good tower overall, very good for the price. solid all around. And then MOAB press, you kind of can't beat it. It's one of the best towers in the game, actually. For the price you're paying to get this much MOAB slowdown and MOAB damage is kind of absurd. All right, you can do more knockback with the Glaive's upgrade, or you can decide to do faster shooting with the middle path. It's kind of up to you on which one you want to go for, but either one actually works depending on what you're looking to do with it. And then once we get to the MOAB Dom, he is obviously a true master of disaster. He's going to pop the biggest balloons in the game pretty effectively. But, admittedly, his weakest point is the biggest balloons in the game. For example, the bad balloon here, I don't want to say it's hard to pop, but you're noticing it's got about 26,000 health, so this guy cannot really solo by himself. He is going to need help to make it happen here. But against pretty much anything smaller than that, it's pretty much complete and utter domination. I mean, you send him backwards, you keep him on the screen, you get an explosion to do group damage here. Of course, he's going to be very, very weak against the balloons, though, so you definitely have to keep that in mind to make sure you've got some balloon popping power somewhere in the back to make sure he's cleaned up. But against MOABs, pretty freaking dominant, to say the least. I mean, that's 4 Oh My Gods getting popped to the very front of the map here. Kind of insane. So that's it. That's boomerangs in a nutshell. What I want to do now is I'm going to rank every single one of the boomerangs here. And I'll have to make my list for you guys real quick here so we can rank every single one of the boomerangs in all of their mighty, delicious glory. All right, guys, here's my final ranking from top boomerang upgrade to bottom boomerang upgrade. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad upgrade because it's at the very bottom here. I'm just saying I think, personally, that it's outclassed by pretty much every other upgrade in the boomerang arsenal here. So, again, this is a personal choice of mine. This is not necessarily what is the best, but let me know what you would change in the comments below. I'm going to start off at the top here, and we're going to go all the way down to the worst on the left side over here. Basically, kind of like a clock would rotate around. First of all, Glaive Lord. He's just rock solid against pretty much everything. I mean, of course, he can't be great against the bad balloon, but if you're good against everything else, he's freaking good enough for me. Then we got to go for the MOAB press. For the money you're spending on this guy, you can spam him and get so much MOAB pop power, it's kind of absurd, so you have to do it. The MOAB Dom. You can do so many 2-tower chimps and weird chimp strategies with like thousands upon thousands of dollars left over with the MOAB Dom, so you pretty much have to do him. Then the permacharge. Some people might argue with me, but the permacharge is actually pretty S tier if you're getting the right cross paths here and using him properly and or buffing him properly. Getting some extra village upgrades can make him absurd as a tower. Then I've got to go Kylie Boomerang. Some people might not like that either, but did I skip this? No, I did that. Okay. Kylie Boomerang is kind of a weird one, but for early game popping power is actually really clutch. Like, I just enjoy him as a tower, and if you put him in the right spot, he's kind of awesome. Moving on to Turbocharge. I like this tower. I just feel like using an ability is kind of difficult, so I have to put him kind of lower on the list. And honestly, I almost could put him lower, but if you use him good, he's freaking awesome, dude. Either cross path's good here, but oh my god, this top path with the right upgrade, almost everything dies with him. Then I gotta go Red Hot Rings. So I kind of wanted to put this higher as well, but how can you outclass the 4th and 5th tiers? They're just too freaking good, even for the money spent. But Red Hot Rings is solid across the board. Popping leads is one thing, but getting that extra damage is key. Then the Glaives. So I like the Glaives because you never really run out of popping power, and you have a lot of extra attack speed for the Glaives, which is something that a lot of people don't even realize. You get attack speed for getting the Glaives here, which then means the improved ranks is going to be one step down because it's basically the exact same thing, but just a little bit cheaper. So it is what it is. Then we go for the fast throwing, which is also cheaper than the faster rings. So I have to put that actually above the faster rings over here. And then finally, we're getting to a 3rd tier Glaive Ricochet at this point. Yeah, I don't know why. I just can't really get into the Glaive Ricochet, even though we got buffed pretty hard here and only cost $650. Just don't find them that usable. So we're getting to the bad end of the boomerangs. Doesn't mean they're terrible, but they're the bad end of the upgrades, if you ask me. Then we get to the more Glaives, which I feel like is just outclassed by a lot of other towers at this point. It's hard to use them right. Don't love them at all. And then finishing off with the Bionic Boomerang. Don't like this guy. Either cross path, I just feel like he's not the right tower, not the right amount of money. Very difficult to use him properly, and I just can't find the right time to use him. It doesn't mean he's terrible. It's just there's other options out there. And lastly, not that it's terrible. For only $110, it makes sense, but it often does make the boomerang, unfortunately, worse in this situation. So it's one of those upgrades that you kind of just have to put near the bottom. So again, let me know what you guys think about my random thing here. Let me know what you think about the video in general. If you'd like me to do this with other towers, I'd love to do it, and what I can do better with those towers. If you enjoyed, press that like button, subscribe, and of course, have a super duper delicious day.